Herkese merhabalar, iyi akşamlar diliyoruz. British Education Bureau ve resim temsilciliğini yaptığımız University of Nottingham'la birlikte siz değerli YLS'ye bursiyerleri ve YLS'ye bursiyeri adaylarımız için düzenlediğimiz yüksek lisans ve doktora başvuru sürecinde dikkat edilmesi gereken noktalar hakkında bilgi aktaracağımız webinara hoş geldiniz. Ben sözü yetkilimiz Bella'yı bırakmadan önce çok kısa British Education Bureau'dan, web'den bahsetmek isterim sizlere. Biz bir EB olarak Nottingham Üniversitesi'nin Türkiye'deki resmi temsilciliğini yapan kurumuz. Temsil ettiğimiz üniversitelerin Türkiye'deki tanıtım faaliyetlerini gerçekleştiriyoruz. Üniversitelerin Türkiye'deki organizasyonlarını gerçekleştiren, hayata geçiren kurum olarak faaliyet gösteriyoruz. 2002 yılında Oxford'da kurulduk. İngiliz ve Türk kuruculara sahip bir yapımız bulunmaktadır. Son 20 yıldır Ankara, İzmir, İstanbul'daki ofislerimizde öğrencilerimize hizmet sağlamaya devam ediyoruz. Uzmanlık alanımız tamamen Birleşik Krallık eğitim sistemidir. Üniversitelerin giriş şartları, başvuru süreçleri, konaklama ve vize aşamaları boyunca detaylı bir şekilde yardımlarımız, desteğimiz devam ediyor öğrencilerimize. Tüm danışmanlık kadromuz İngiltere'de Birleşik Krallık eğitim sistemine hakim. Bu konularda devamlı olarak eğitimler almaya devam eden bir yapıdan oluşmaktadır. Birleşik Krallık'ta toplam 130 tane devlet üniversitesi bulunmaktadır. Biz bu 130 üniversitenin 90'ını Türkiye'deki resmi temsilciliğini yapıyoruz. Temsilciliğini yaptığımız tüm üniversiteler içinde ücretsiz danışmanlık hizmetimiz bulunuyor. Bizleri bu belirtilmiş olduğumuz internet sayfamız, Instagram ve Facebook sayfalarımız üzerinden takip edebilirsiniz. Aynı zamanda İstanbul, Ankara, İzmir ve Lefkoşa'daki ofislerimize de bu numaralardan ulaşabilirsiniz. Ben sözü yetkilimize bırakıyorum. Hem yüksek lisans hem de doktora başvuru sürecinde dikkat etmemiz gereken noktalar neler? Genel olarak bunlar hakkında bilgiler aktarılıyor olacak sizler için. Sorularınız oldukça chat box üzerinden veya el kaldırma butonuyla sesli bir şekilde paylaşabilirsiniz. Sunum sonunda yanıtlıyor olacağız hepsini. Thank you very much, Bella. It's yours now.
Perfect, thank you. So I'll just share my screen with you all. There we go. So nice to see so many of you on the call this evening. Thank you for joining. My name is Bella, and I work at the University of Nottingham, and today we are going to talk about applying for postgraduate programs, so both master's courses and PhD programs. So if there are any questions, do feel free to put them into the chat box. We will have chance at the end to go through those, so if there's anything at all that you'd like to know, please just ask. So what we're going to cover today, so as well as giving you a little bit of information about the university itself, we're going to go through all of the different things that you need to think about and consider when you're applying for a postgraduate program at the university. So we'll cover things like how to search for a course, what the different entry requirements are, how you actually submit an application for both master's and PhD courses, what you should include in either your kind of statement of purpose, so your motivational letter for a master's course or a research proposal for a PhD, and some of the different documents that you might be asked to submit when you're applying. So this is just some of the areas that we'll go over, but like I say, if there's anything at all that you'd like to know specifically, do feel free to put it into the chat box. So first of all, just a little bit of background information about the university itself as a place to come and do your postgraduate degree. So the University of Nottingham is really well known both throughout the UK and wider across the world as being a really kind of excellent place to study. It has a really strong reputation. So we're a member of the Russell Group, so that means that we are focused on research, and we are ranked 8th in the UK for our research power in the latest research excellence frameworks. That was in 2014, was the last one that was done. So we're 8th in the UK for that. So it's a really strong place to come and be a postgraduate student. We're ranked in the top 20 in the UK. top 70 in the world for employability. And as a research university, you will be working alongside experts in their field. So you'll be kind of learning and researching with world-leading academics in a variety of different subjects. So these are just some of the reasons that Nottingham makes a really strong university. In terms of its kind of student body, it's a really, really international, multicultural place to come and be a student. So we actually have campuses here in Nottingham, but also in China and Malaysia. So very much a global university. Here in Nottingham, we have just under 35,000 students who study with us. And about 10,000 of those are international students, so about a third of our student body. So very, very diverse, students from over 150 different countries. We have lots of students study with us from Turkey. So it's a really popular destination, and you'll always meet people both from your home country and from places all around the world. So it's a really nice way to kind of get to know people. And we also have quite a big alumni community. So over 300,000 Nottingham graduates who remain part of the kind of Nottingham alumni family, the alumni community. And there's lots of events that are hosted to allow you to kind of stay in touch with your fellow classmates. There's also lots of research and teaching partnerships that Nottingham is part of, which means that you get to experience research from other universities, you get to kind of collaborate with people around the world, and there's also the opportunity to spend time in different countries as well. Even as Masters and PhD students, there's often opportunities to experience a different kind of culture and network within that, thanks to the different partnerships that we have. So what can you actually study at Nottingham? So lots of you will have very specific areas that you want to be focusing on. You might be sponsored for a very particular programme. So here at Nottingham, we have 5 faculties, and that's one of the key things. As a research kind of public institution, we teach almost everything. There's very few areas that we don't offer, and that's largely dentistry, fashion and theatre, but almost everything else we have here at Nottingham. So our 5 faculties, we have arts, engineering, medicine and health sciences, the science faculty, and then social sciences. So to go into a little bit more detail about what each of those areas covers, within arts, we have 3 main areas. So cultures, languages and area studies, English, and then humanities. And humanities covers everything from classics through to music, religious studies, history. So quite a broad area. We then have engineering, and we teach almost every type of engineering here at Nottingham. It's a really strong faculty. Things like robotics, mechatronics are covered within our engineering faculty, so within electrical and electronic engineering. And we have quite a lot of research institutes for engineering, which I'll mention in a few slides. So for students that are applying for PhD programs, there's some really strong research centres here on campus, but we offer postgraduate degrees in all of these areas. Medicine and health sciences, this is where you'll find things like physiotherapy within health sciences, as well as medicine and veterinary medicine. Science is where you'll find your more kind of typical pure sciences, so chemistry, biology, physics, maths, but also areas like computer science and psychology. And then finally, we have social sciences, and this is where you'll find the business school, economics, law, politics, as well as things like education and sociology. So a really, really big faculty. This is probably our biggest faculty in terms of size. But again, lots of different courses, both masters and PhD programs on offer. So we actually teach over 200 postgraduate degrees. There's a huge variety to choose from. So if there's anything specifically that you're looking for, we'll talk a little bit in a minute about how to kind of find those areas. And just to mention the research centres. So for students, particularly for PhD options, but even for master's students that are maybe wanting to see the sort of calibre of academic you might be working with, At Nottingham, we have over 73 research centres or research institutes, and these are kind of areas where they're really advancing in research. So I've listed some examples here of areas that might be of interest. So things like additive manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, but also areas in enterprise and innovation, human rights, law, so quite a broad spectrum. And one of the ones I've highlighted here is the Rolls-Royce manufacturing technology. So Rolls-Royce do a lot of work with our university. Their headquarters are not far away, just about 20 minutes. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved in research, particularly within the kind of aerospace field and kind of additive manufacturing. So lots and lots of really kind of world-class research going on for you to be involved in. So how would you start looking for a course? So you know sort of what area you are being sponsored for or you want to apply for. How do you find if Nottingham has that particular programme? So the best thing to do is use our kind of search tool. So we have an A to Z course search, which will allow you to search by either a taught course, which is a master's programme, so an MSc or an MA, or a research programme, and that's your PhD options. So you can search by that, you can search by subject area, you can search by your year of entry, so lots of different filters that you can use. You can also search by keywords, so if there's particular topics that you want to see if we have, you can look at that as well. So I've listed the web link here, so it's just nottingham.ac.uk/study with us. And that will allow you to search for postgraduate courses. So A to Z search is the easiest way to find the programme that you're interested in. So you found the course that you want to do, and then you want to know sort of what are the typical entry requirements that you would need to study at Nottingham. So for students applying for a master's degree, typically you will need a bachelor's degree with a second class honours, so 2-1, that's the UK degree. For students with a Turkish bachelor's degree, it would typically be a GPA of 3 overall. But there are some universities where we will consider a slightly lower GPA, so 2.8. So we do have a little bit of flexibility. And again, if you want to know if a particular university that you studied at, which GPA would you be looking for, just let me know and I'll give you my email address as well so you can get in touch directly. But for master's courses, you need a typically 3.0 GPA in your bachelor's degree. For research programmes, you typically need your bachelor's degree as well as a master's degree. And that would need to be in a relevant subject for the PhD programme that you're applying for. The other entry requirements for PhD programmes would include a research proposal and identifying a supervisor. And we'll come on to both of those things in the next few slides. There's also English language requirements to think about. So at Nottingham, we accept a variety of tests. So things like IELTS, TOEFL, Pearson English, Cambridge English. I know lots of you will be doing IELTS training. So typically the minimum score would be 6 overall. The highest would be 7.5. And it really depends on the course that you're applying for. So our website will tell you exactly which score is needed for the course that you're submitting an application for. And we do offer what we call pre-sessional English courses. So if your IELTS score is slightly below the requirement, we have a range of different length programmes that are designed to bring your English to the required level. So you can do 10-week courses, you can do 6-week courses in English to bring your IELTS score to the level that you need for your course. So how do you actually apply for programmes at Nottingham? So both Masters and PhD programmes follow the same application system. So all of our courses are applied for online. We have an application portal called Nottingham Hub. And this is what all students will use to apply. If you're applying through an agent, so through BEB, they have an application portal and can submit an application for you. So you've got lots of options to be supported with your application, but you apply online through the application portal called My Nottingham. And Nottingham Hub. So there's two different names for it, but you will know it as Nottingham Hub. There's a fee to submit an application. So this only applies to students who are applying for a taught master's course or a master's research program. So if you're applying for a PhD, you don't need to pay to submit an application. But for postgraduate taught master's courses, there is a fee of £50. So you pay that to have your application assessed. And once it's paid, your application is submitted to the admissions teams. So Nottingham Hub is an online application portal where you submit your application, you upload documents, and you can track your application as well. So you get all of your email communications through Nottingham Hub. You will receive any updates on your application through there, and you'll also be able to kind of respond to your offers or any other queries that you might get through Nottingham Hub. And I'll show you on the next screen what the typical application form will look like. So this is an example of what you'll see when you start an application. So whether you're applying yourself or applying through an agent, you'll have lots of different areas to fill in, and everyone fills in the same information depending on whether you're applying for a master's or a PhD program, as there's slightly different things that you need to include. But it's an online application form, and you can see on the right hand side there's different sections that you will need to complete. So things like personal details, your contact details, where you currently live, your education, any tests you've taken, so English language tests, for example. There's areas that you can complete around work experience. You then have references to upload and supporting documents. And we'll talk about what that covers in the next few slides. But you can see some of them have a yellow sort of asterisk next to them. And that means that they're kind of compulsory to be completed in order to submit your application. But there's also areas that don't have that asterisk. So things like visa information, because that's not something that you will typically have at that stage. Things like test information, you might not yet have taken an IELTS. So there's sections that don't have to be completed, and there's sections that are compulsory. But once you've worked through those, you're then able to submit your application online, and that gets sent through to the admissions team. So what is it important to include when you're applying for a course? So whether you're applying for a master's program or a PhD, there's different things that you will want to think about. And with a master's application, you will have a personal statement or a statement of purpose, a motivational letter that you'll be submitting when you're applying for a course. And it's really important that you do include that, as it's something that the admissions team will use to decide your suitability. And it's your chance to kind of show why we should choose you. So when you're writing a personal statement for your master's application, there's a few things to think about. So in terms of the length, it would normally be one side of A4 paper. That's the typical length. Some students will write slightly more than that. But around one side of A4 is common. And it's really your chance to demonstrate that you're right for the course, why you're choosing that program, that you're a good fit for the program. And it's really important that you make it unique and tailored to the program that you're applying for at that particular university. So for each master's course that you apply for, you will be able to submit a separate motivational letter. So it's very different to an undergraduate application where you might only have one for all the universities you apply for. For master's courses, you can submit a different one for each university. So it's really important that you tailor it to that university and say why you're choosing that master's course at that particular university, to show that you've done your research, you know what the course is about, you know why you want to study that particular program. And there's a few other things that you should also think about including in that motivational letter. So thinking about why you're applying to the course, so your reasons for applying, any preparation that you've done for this course. So this is where you can talk about your bachelor's degree. You might want to talk about a dissertation or a thesis if you've done that already in your bachelor's and how that kind of relates. So anything that's kind of linked to the course and makes it relevant for you. You can talk about your skills, so any work experience you've done, any readings, you might have been to conferences, you might have work experience as a professional, so you might have done your bachelor's degree, worked for a little while, and are now applying for a master's. And you can talk about what skills you've gained in that time that makes you a good fit for this course. Some students will go straight from a bachelor's course to a master's and not have any working time in between, and that's completely fine as well. You would talk about the kind of skills and knowledge that you've gained either during your course or maybe during vacation times, if you've done any placements, any internships, anything like that that you think is relevant and shows off your skills. And then you might also want to think about including any of your career goals or long-term goals and how this course is going to help you get there. So really it's about showing why you're choosing this particular program, what makes you suitable for it, why you're a good candidate and why the admissions team should choose you, and why it's going to help you in the future. So if you have the required grades, they'll be looking at your personal statement to see why they should choose you for that program. For research courses, it's slightly different. So if you're applying for a PhD, there's a few different things that you need to think about. So you would first be looking at the research opportunities that are available. So typically for international students, you will be applying for an individual project. So there's different ways of doing a PhD. So some of them are things called studentships, which are advertised as a job, but these are typically for UK students. We have some doctoral training programs, and they have very limited spaces. And then the most common route is through an individual project. So this is where you have your own research proposal and you're finding a supervisor to kind of match that. And this is the most common route for international students, is through an individual project. So you would obviously check your entry requirements, as we've mentioned, your English language requirements, and make sure you fit those. You would be writing a research proposal, which we will talk about in a minute, and then submitting your application. So there's a couple of additional steps to think about before you submit an application for a research course. So the first thing you'll need to do, once you've chosen your course area and you know that Nottingham has kind of a PhD within that area that you want to work in, you would then need to find a supervisor. So this is something that you need to do if you are applying for a PhD. And we actually list all of our supervisors for each PhD area. So I've given an example here, and this is all available via our website. So you're able to find for each kind of course page, so PhD law, which is what we've got here, there will be a section that says find a supervisor. And if you click on that, it then takes you through to all the different staff they have and the different areas that they work in. So as you can see on the right hand side of the page where it says step 2, you'd search for a supervisor by research area. You can actually type in different keywords. So depending on the type of law that you want to do your PhD in, you can actually filter it by a keyword and see all of the staff that work in that particular area and research that particular field. And you can contact them directly to see if they're interested in working on your project. And that's something that you will need to do in order to apply for a PhD. So some students will apply without looking for a supervisor, and often they get rejected because there's no one available to work in that particular area. So it's really important that you find a supervisor before you submit your application. Once you've got a supervisor who's interested in working on your research, you'll want to write a research proposal. And this might be something that you've already done. You might have done this before you speak to the supervisor, or you might want to see if there's someone in that area first and then write your research proposal. But really, a research proposal is to show that you understand the idea of conducting research and what you need to think about when you're doing a research study. So it's really to kind of show what you're going to be working on. And there's different ways of writing a research proposal depending on the kind of area that you're applying for. So if you're applying for a PhD in arts or in social sciences, so things like business, law, economics, for example, you would typically write your research proposal on an area of research that interests you, an original, so it can be something that you've come up with, a question that you've created, and that's what you would base your research proposal on. Whereas for something like engineering, sciences or health sciences, where it's a little bit more specific and our researchers may be a little bit more restricted in what they can supervise, it's important to try and base your proposal on research that's already going on at the university. So that's why it's really important to have a look at what the lecturers are working in, what fields they're researching at the moment, because it may be that there's projects that they're already involved in. And an example of this, so a couple of years ago, I came to Turkey with a professor from our engineering faculty, and he met a sponsored student who was interested in potentially applying, but didn't have a particular research area. And this professor was working on a particular project, and he said, actually, if you're sponsored for this general area, if you're happy to work on this with me, we will create the research proposal together. So it's linking in with what they're already doing, but making it relevant to what you need to do your PhD on. So it's really important to speak to the supervisors beforehand. They will be able to tell you what's going on at the university, what research is happening at the moment, and whether your area will fit into that. So what do you include in your research proposal? You're not expected to have everything kind of written down already. So like I say, some people will have an idea of their research, whereas others will just have a kind of vague plan. But a good proposal would clearly show your topic, so what you want to do your research on. It will show that you understand your research area, and it'll show that you've started to think about a research question. And this is where sometimes the supervisors will have kind of given you a question that you'll be working on, but we'll want to see that you've got an idea of what your question will be. And we'll also want to see that you know how to conduct research. So you may have done this in your master's courses, and that's something that we'll want to see. And it should also look professional. So it's an important proposal. So you'll want to make sure that it's laid out really clearly, well structured, and it's kind of a professional piece of writing. And it doesn't need to be a really, really long proposal. What we're looking for is the quality of what you're saying rather than the length of it. And there's a little bit of information here about how you should structure it. So obviously you would start with your title, so the kind of description of your proposal. We want an overview, which is where you can kind of summarize what the proposal is, what the question is that you're going to answer. Some background summary, so where does your research area fit into? Why is it important? How is it going to contribute to that particular field? Your aim, so what is the aim of your research? What questions are you going to answer to kind of get there? The methods that you're going to use, and the time scale, so how are you going to do your research? How are you going to collect data if that's something that you're doing? How will you analyze it? And what sort of time frame are you looking at? When is this all going to take place? Is it achievable within your kind of time period? And then finally, a bibliography or a reference list. So if you've listed any publications or sources in your research proposal, this is where you'll list them. So it's quite a formal piece of writing, but it's really about seeing that you know what your topic is, that you know how it fits into that research area, and that it's kind of, you know, why it's going to add value. And again, the supervisor that you speak to may be able to help you with this. That's another reason why it's really important to speak with them. So two important links, and I'll share all of these links directly afterwards, but we have two guides online. So one is applying for taught courses, so masters programs, PGCE, postgraduate diplomas, those sorts of areas, and research opportunities, so PhD programs. And we have two kind of step-by-step guides on how to apply. And it will take you through each step of what you need to do in terms of looking at the entry requirements, looking at the deadlines, how to write your research proposal. So again, it will give you a lot more detail on what to do. But these are two really good links to use and will help you in submitting your application and making sure that you're kind of navigating it properly. And then just finally, before I share a little bit more information about Nottingham, these are some of the documents that you will need when you're applying for a postgraduate course. So if you're applying for a master's, it would be copies of your bachelor's degree certificate or your transcript if you've not yet finished your course. Your English language qualification, if you have that available already, but if not, that's not a problem. You can take it after you've applied. You'll have your personal statement or your statement of purpose and references. So 2 references are typically required. If you're applying for a PhD, it would be your copies of your bachelor and your master's degrees or the transcripts again, the English language qualification, and then you would need your research proposal, proof of having contacted a supervisor, if that's something that's required. So like I say, most of the time you do need to speak to a supervisor first, and you can upload the email that you've spoken to them with to say this is the supervisor, and it just means that our admissions team can go directly to them and check that everything's okay. And then again, references. So fairly similar documents required. It's just for the PhD, you've got those couple of additional things to think about. So just to tell you a little bit about Nottingham's campuses before we go on to kind of question and answers. So Nottingham, as I mentioned, has campuses all over the world, but in Nottingham we actually have 3 different locations, all very close to each other. So University Park campus is our biggest campus. It's really quite green and pretty and peaceful. There's a big lake in the middle where students can kind of rent boats or paddle boards, and it's where a lot of the departments are based. So this is an aerial shot. Subjects like engineering, pharmacy, law, sciences, economics, politics, history would all be based on University Park campus. So lots of students will study here. It's also where our main students' union is, our biggest sports village, the health centre, lots of different libraries here as well. So it's a really big campus, and it's about 10 to 15 minutes from the city centre. So really easy to get around. Student accommodation is available here. It's mostly undergraduate accommodation on this campus. Postgraduate accommodation is more on Jubilee campus or around Jubilee campus. And this is probably a 2 to 3 minute bus ride from University Park. So we have buses that go between them for free. So it's really easy to travel, or you can walk it in about 10 to 15 minutes. And this is where our business school, computer science, education, and our pre-sessional English courses are based. So it's a really interesting campus for architecture. It's quite different looking, it's very eco-friendly. And again, you can see there's lots of different things on here. So we've got, again, sports centres, places to eat and drink, libraries, accommodation. So postgraduate accommodation is available all around Jubilee campus. And again, it's only about 10 minutes to the city centre. And then the third campus we have is Sutton Bonington. And this is a little bit more rural. It's about 15 kilometres from University Park. And it's a purpose-built campus for biosciences, so areas like nutrition and the School of Veterinary Medicine. So really high-tech facilities for those programs. And it's actually on a working dairy farm. So a really interesting campus to be kind of studying on. Students that study here will typically live on this campus just because it's slightly easier. But again, there are free buses that go between here and University Park all day. So it's really easy to kind of get between the two. And just to finish by telling you a little bit about Nottingham as a city. So Nottingham is right in the middle of England. It's something that people tend to ask me is kind of whereabouts is it? I know of it, but I don't know where it is. So it's about 1 hour and 35 minutes on the train to London, 1 hour to Birmingham, 2 hours to Manchester. So really, really kind of well situated for exploring. And it's very much a student city. We have 2 universities based in Nottingham. So a real kind of student feel to it, which is really nice. And you can walk everywhere. So it's not a huge city, very much a kind of compact size. That's one of the things I really like about it, is that you don't need to use public transport. You can walk everywhere. Really vibrant. So it's ranked as a top 10 city in the UK for students. Lots of different things to do, culture, sport, nightlife. It's got a really good art scene as well. So independent cinemas, theatres. We've got a really nice art gallery. So lots of different things going on. It's a UNESCO City of Literature. So we have quite interesting festivals that take place, different kind of events that go on throughout the year, but it's also very safe. So this is something that people ask me is, what's it like to live in as a student? And there's something in the UK called a Purple Flag Award, which is kind of given to cities to recognise their safety, particularly at night. And Nottingham's been awarded that every year since 2010. So it's a really safe place to be a student as well. But yeah, lots of different things going on. And as I said earlier, a huge number of international students study with us. So it's a really kind of friendly, welcoming, multicultural city in general anyway. So it's a really nice kind of option for thinking about where to study. So we'll move on to some questions. You can see my email address there. So if there is anything that you wanted to get in touch directly about, you're very welcome to, or you can speak to BB and they'll be able to put you in touch with me as well. But I will see if there's any questions now. Thank you very much for listening, and do let me know if there's anything I can help with.
So thank you very much, Bella, for your presentation and information. We have already one question. Hi, Bella. I would like to start law PhD program at your university, but I don't have a master's degree. Can I get a PhD under these conditions?
Okay. So typically you would need to have a master's degree first for PhD programs. There's very few courses that will consider a bachelor's degree directly. English sometimes will. But typically law, you will need a master's degree first before doing your PhD.
Thank you.
Okay.
We can wait for a couple of minutes.
Sure. And I know for some of you who are coming to do master's programs, you sometimes have to do your thesis on a very particular topic. If that's something that you want to check if it's possible, again, you can just get in touch directly, and we're able to speak to the department and see what the options are if you do have a particular topic that you need to do your thesis on.
Yeah, there is one more question. Can I apply for a PhD program before I get master's degree? For example, I applied for a PhD program in May, but I would like to get my master program in June.
Okay, yeah, so you can apply for your PhD before you've completed your master's program, but you would need to have completed the master's course before you start your PhD. So you can start an application for a PhD. If you finish your master's degree in June, you could start your PhD, for example, in September, which would be the next start date, but you couldn't start a PhD in May and finish your master's in June. So you have to finish the master's first, but you can start your application before you've completed that master's. That's not a problem.
Thank you. Sometimes our students are also asking whether the like master's degree without thesis is acceptable for PhD applications?
Again, it will depend. So some courses will require the thesis as well, whereas others might be a little bit more flexible. So in that case, I would always suggest just getting in touch and we will check for that particular program. Examples I know off the top of my head, the business school, for example, you need to do a thesis in your master's to do a PhD with them, but there are some courses that might be more flexible.
Thank you very much. Do you have any scholarships for Turkish students?
Yes, yeah, we do offer scholarships. So we have a Middle East and Turkey scholarship for both undergraduate and master's courses. We don't offer any PhD funding at the moment, but for master's courses, we have scholarships of £4,000 or £8,000 towards the tuition fee. So if you have an offer to study with us, you can apply for a scholarship. We also have business school master's scholarships, computer science scholarships, and limited number of engineering scholarships as well this year. So a few different options. We have a scholarships webpage. So if you just Google University of Nottingham International Scholarships, you'll be able to see everything that's available.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
I think, yeah, we covered all the questions already.
Great. Okay.
Thank you so much
No
for
problem.
your presentation once again. We hope to see you face to face in Turkey
Yes,
soon,
hopefully
very soon.
soon.
Yeah.
But like I say, any questions, feel free to pass them over directly. Happy to answer anything there as well. All
Thank
right.
you very much. Have a
Nice
great
to
day
see you
for
all.
you.
Thank you everyone for attending.
See you.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.